Ladies and gentlemen, the loudest room is often the emptiest. The brightest spotlight often hides the deepest shadows. But when the heart is still and the lips are silent, the voice of God can be heard more clearly than thunder. Focus is the compass of the soul. When the heart loses its direction, it does not matter how strong the sails are or how vast the ocean appears. We drift without purpose. A life scattered in 100 directions never finds peace, because every distraction becomes a wave, pulling us further from the shore. To focus on God is to set the mind on a fixed point that does not move when the world shakes. Storms may rage, voices may rise, temptations may call, but the one who has fixed their gaze on the eternal finds a steadiness that cannot be taken away. Focus is not simply about turning away from noise. It is about turning toward the one who gives meaning to silence. The mind left unfocused will chase shadows, mistaking them for light, but the heart that learns to look toward God discovers clarity in the midst of confusion. It is as though the fog begins to lift, and the path once hidden becomes visible. This focus requires discipline, because the world offers endless invitations to wander. It asks us to chase recognition, wealth, pleasure, and applause. Yet every pursuit without God ends in emptiness. To focus on Him is to choose the eternal over the temporary, the steady flame over the flickering spark. It is not a once for all decision, but a daily turning, again and again, toward the source of truth. When focus is fixed on God, the soul does not drift. It journeys with certainty, even through uncertain seas. Humility is not weakness. It is the doorway to strength that does not boast of itself. Pride builds walls, but humility opens windows. When a person is consumed with pride, their vision narrows to the size of their own reflection. They cannot see beyond themselves, and so wisdom remains hidden, locked away behind the bars of self-importance. But when one chooses to bow low, to admit need, to confess limitations, then the eyes are open to greater realities. The humble heart sees what the proud cannot, the greatness of God and the smallness of man. True humility is not to despise oneself, but to rightly understand oneself. It is to stand in the light of God's majesty and realize that everything we have, every breath we take, every gift we hold is borrowed. None of it is earned by our own strength. This recognition does not crush us. It frees us. For once we stop pretending to carry the weight of our own greatness, we are able to rest in the one who truly holds us. Humility makes space for learning. A proud person cannot be taught, for they already believe they know all things. But the humble are teachable, open, and ready to grow. They can kneel in silence and receive wisdom greater than their own. To humble oneself is not to lose dignity, but to gain perspective. It is to trade illusion for truth, and in that truth to find the kind of wisdom that leads not just to knowledge, but to life itself. Silence is not emptiness, but a vessel waiting to be filled. In a world that glorifies noise, endless chatter, and constant display, silence feels like absence. Yet it is often in the absence of sound that the deepest truths are spoken. Words have their place, but they are limited. They can only stretch so far before they break under the weight of what cannot be said. Silence, however, leaves space for what is eternal. It quiets the clamor of self so that the voice of God can rise like a whisper cutting through the storm. When we choose silence, we learn that stillness is not weakness, but strength. The person who does not feel the need to answer every insult, prove every point, or shout every opinion carries a quiet power that no argument can shake. Silence teaches restraint. It guards us from careless words that wound, from prideful speech that elevates self, from anger that destroys peace. In silence, the heart can breathe. It is in those moments that reflection deepens, prayer grows richer, and listening becomes possible. We discover that to stay silent is not to withdraw from life, but to engage with it more truthfully, for it is only when the noise fades that we recognize what matters most. Silence is not an escape from reality. It is the condition in which reality becomes clear. To stay silent is to open a door where wisdom enters and where the eternal voice can finally be heard. Noise surrounds us like a constant storm, demanding our attention, drowning out the quiet places where truth might be heard. It comes in many forms: the chatter of opinions, the endless scroll of images, the clamor of self-promotion. The world has trained us to measure our worth by how loudly we can speak, how visibly we can shine, how persistently we can prove ourselves. But in chasing after noise, we often sacrifice depth. We may be seen, yet remain unknown. We may speak, yet fail to say anything of substance. Depth is found in the quiet, where the soul no longer needs to compete with the world. Noise distracts, pulling the heart in countless directions until it becomes restless and weary. But stillness gathers those fragments back together. In the quiet, we learn to ask better questions, to listen more carefully, to see beyond appearances. Noise makes us shallow, content with surface answers, but silence invites us deeper, closer to the eternal. Great truths rarely shout. They come like whispers, gentle enough to be missed by those too busy talking. Wisdom rarely parades itself in the marketplace. It waits in the hidden places where the world seldom looks. The danger of constant noise is that it deceives us into believing we are alive simply because we are loud. But true life is measured not by volume, but by substance. To step away from the noise is not to lose our place in the world. It is to finally find it. There is a posture the soul must learn if it is to receive what God freely offers, and it is the posture of empty hands. We often approach life clutching at our own accomplishments, gripping our pride, holding tightly to recognition or control. Yet the more we cling to these things, the less room there is for the grace of God to rest upon us. His presence cannot be carried in hands already full of self. It requires surrender, a willingness to let go of what seems valuable in order to grasp what is truly eternal. Empty hands symbolize trust. To release what we think sustains us is to admit that we are not the source of our own strength. It is to confess that we cannot save ourselves, no matter how great our achievements. The gift of God cannot be earned, bargained for, or purchased. It can only be received. But to receive, the heart must be uncluttered, and the hands must be open. This surrender is not loss, but gain. What we lay down in humility is returned to us in a new form, sanctified and renewed by His presence. The act of letting go becomes the path of receiving abundance. To focus on God, to humble oneself, and to remain silent. All of these prepare the soul for that empty-handed posture. And when we finally stop trying to hold everything together by our own grasp, we discover that it is His hands, not ours, that hold all things secure. Strength is often mistaken for volume, for the ability to command attention, to dominate a room, or to fight every battle in public view. Yet true strength is of a different kind. It is not found in the loud declaration of one's power, but in the quiet obedience that seeks no audience. It is the strength of the one who prays in secret, who serves without recognition, who endures trials without needing to broadcast them. This kind of strength cannot be shaken, for it is rooted not in applause, but in faithfulness. Quiet obedience requires courage. It is easier to defend our own name than to surrender it. It is easier to demand honor than to live in humility. But the one who chooses obedience over pride discovers a freedom that the proud will never know. Obedience does not mean weakness. It means aligning one's will with something higher, something eternal. In that alignment, there is power, power that is steady, enduring, and unshaken by the fleeting opinions of the world. Strength is not in proving ourselves, but in entrusting ourselves to God. It is found in the unseen choices, the small acts of faithfulness that no one applauds yet heaven records. It is found in patience when answers do not come quickly, in perseverance when the path is hard, and in forgiveness when the wound is deep. Quiet obedience is the soil where true strength grows, and in its silence lies a power louder than any boast the world can make. Focus on God. Humble yourself. Stay silent. For in the quiet surrender of the soul, eternity thunders with the voice of heaven.